We see James driving along a road near the mountains. His car is moving at extremely high speed. For a brief moment, he loses focus and almost crashes into a vehicle in front of him, but he quickly swerves and avoids the collision. However, his reckless driving causes damage to another vehicle belonging to a woman named Maria. James steps out of his car and approaches the woman to help her. At that moment, a bus arrives and the woman prepares to leave. She had originally planned to stay in the city, but now she has no other choice except to return to her hometown, a place called Silent Hill. James feels guilty about what happened and decides to follow her there so he can properly apologize. At that moment, the entire sky becomes covered in thick fog and strong winds begin to blow. Later, we see James waking up drunk inside a bar. His phone keeps ringing repeatedly, but he ignores it. A worker approaches him and tells him it's time to leave. As James stands up, he accidentally bumps into a woman. The situation escalates quickly, and security is called. James begins defending himself aggressively. Eventually, other people intervene and force him out of the bar. His phone continues ringing. When he finally answers it, it turns out to be his psychiatrist. She already knows that James has relapsed into heavy drinking. After realizing he's intoxicated, she asks him to go home immediately and promises to talk to him later. When James returns home, we see a photograph of Maria hanging on the wall. He sits down and drinks heavily again. Soon after, he notices a letter that had been delivered to him. When he opens the letter, he's completely shocked. The letter is from Maria. It says that she knows it has been a long time since they separated and she wants him to come see her at their old home in Silent Hill. Despite being drunk, James immediately takes his car and begins driving toward Silent Hill. A violent storm surrounds him during the journey. When he finally arrives, he's exhausted and falls asleep inside his car. While sleeping, memories flood his mind, memories of the beautiful life he once shared with Maria. Eventually, James steps out of the car and enters Silent Hill. There, he meets a woman named Angela. Angela appears distressed and asks him for help carrying her belongings. James asks her if she knows where Maria is. Angela responds coldly, telling him that he may never see Maria again. She warns him that Silent Hill is filled with dark secrets and is an extremely dangerous place. James remembers how Maria once described Silent Hill as a peaceful and beautiful place where she could live happily for the rest of her life. But now, everything feels wrong. It seems like Maria had been hiding something from him. Confused and disturbed, James continues exploring the town. The place is completely empty. There are no people anywhere. Thick fog covers everything, and the atmosphere feels heavy and terrifying. The buildings are destroyed, and it looks like no one has lived there for many years. As he walks, James suddenly hears static coming from his radio. The radio begins producing disturbing noises, warning him that danger is nearby. James calls out Maria's name repeatedly, but no one responds. Suddenly, he hears movement coming from a nearby hole in the ground. As he approaches cautiously, he sees a strange man near a mailbox. At first, James thinks the man is dead, but he's actually alive. The man warns him that this town is cursed and tells him to leave immediately. At that moment, James receives another call from his psychiatrist. She's angry that he missed his appointment. James tells her he's in Silent Hill and that something terrible has happened there, but she doesn't believe him. She tells him to stop making excuses and come see her immediately. James hangs up. Soon after, he notices a building with lights on inside. It appears to be a restaurant. Inside, there are several people who seem to be locals. But suddenly his attention is broken when he hears a terrifying scream coming from outside. He runs outside to investigate. There, he sees something horrifying. A creature made entirely of human flesh. It has no arms. The creature attacks him, but because it lacks arms, James manages to overpower it. He kills the creature, but immediately after, he notices a hole in the ground, and strange sounds begin emerging from it. Soon, more creatures begin appearing. The radio noise grows louder and more disturbing. Darkness completely surrounds the area. Creatures of various horrifying forms begin crawling out of the ground. Some look like twisted humans. Others look like deformed insects. Their shapes are unnatural and terrifying. James is forced to run for his life. He finds a nearby house and locks himself inside. Barely surviving, he realizes something shocking. This is Maria's old house. This is where she used to live. Realizing he is inside Maria's old house, James slowly moves deeper into the building. Upstairs, a television is still on. Several videotapes are scattered nearby. Each tape is labeled with a month and a year. His hands tremble as he picks one up. When he plays it, the footage disturbs him deeply. The images are horrifying and painful to watch. Just then, his psychiatrist calls again. She tells him firmly to leave that place immediately and come back for treatment. But before the conversation can continue, his phone suddenly dies. She keeps trying to call him repeatedly. James remembers the first time he visited Maria in Silent Hill. Back then, he had been warned that love can be both powerful and extremely dangerous, something that requires caution. The people there had seemed strange to him. When he once asked Maria who those people were, she told him they were her family. After her father died, they were the ones who took care of her. James remembers seeing a photograph of her father inside the house. Whenever he tried to ask more about it, Maria would avoid the topic. Now, as he continues exploring, he meets a man named Ante. The man looks sick and badly injured. Ante asks him, "What brought you here?" James replies that he is searching for Maria. Ante begins laughing bitterly and says, "You don't know what happened here, do you?" He explains that heavy rains once fell over Silent Hill. A deadly virus spread through the town. The water became contaminated and sewage overflowed everywhere. The infection spread rapidly among the people. Half of the town's population turned into strange, horrifying monsters. As the rain continued, creatures began emerging from underground. They attacked anyone who was still alive in Silent Hill. James refuses to believe him. To prove it, Ante shows him the wounds on his body. Deep, infected injuries that look like something unnatural has been eating away at him. Terrified, James begins backing away. Suddenly, he hears the voice of a little girl named Laura. She is hiding inside what looks like an abandoned prison area. She is scared. James reaches out his hand and tells her not to be afraid. But before he can reach her, he hears a terrifying metallic dragging sound behind him. He turns around. Standing there is a massive creature with a metal helmet shaped like a pyramid covering its head. It carries an enormous blade. The creature slowly advances toward James. James panics and runs for his life. Suddenly, fire erupts around the area. The fire and the monstrous figure clash violently. James hides nearby and watches in horror as the pyramid-headed creature mercilessly slaughters the other monsters. The creature's strength is overwhelming. Before James can escape, he is struck and loses consciousness. The next morning he wakes up. He finds himself alive, and an elderly woman is standing nearby. She warns him to leave Silent Hill immediately. She tells him this place is filled with secrets and extreme danger, but James ignores her warning and continues forward. Outside, he meets Laura again. She tells him that the balloons she has were given to her by Maria. James asks if she knows where Maria is. Instead of answering, Laura runs away. James chases her through narrow paths until he suddenly meets another woman, someone who looks exactly like Maria. She has beautiful golden hair and introduces herself as Maria. She tells James she will help him. As they walk together, they encounter more creatures and are forced to hide repeatedly. Eventually, they reach a hospital. Maria tells him that she and her family once lived there. James watches as strange town residents gather secretly inside. He begins observing them carefully. The elderly woman shows him more evidence about Maria's past. Maria had been part of a cult-like group known as Joshua. This group practiced extremely dangerous rituals. James witnesses something horrifying, a dead person being transformed into a zombie. Suddenly, they are attacked again. The elderly woman is injured. Before dying, she tells James, "If you don't bring Maria here, you must save yourself." Laura appears again and leads James toward a room labeled 3008. Inside, another terrifying creature attacks him. James loses consciousness once more. And then, everything changes. We realize that everything we have seen was not entirely real. It was all happening inside James's mind. James is actually inside a psychiatric hospital. His personal psychiatrist comes to see him and explains that he has been undergoing treatment there for several months. After his wife Maria died, he suffered severe psychological trauma. Maria was real, but everything else, the monsters, the town, the cult, were manifestations created by his broken mind. The doctor explains that his mind collapsed when the woman he loved passed away. Suddenly, James closes his eyes and has another vision. He sees Maria being attacked, her body changing into something monstrous. He begs her for forgiveness, crying out, "Please forgive me." She burns away before his eyes. Then reality shifts again. We see the real Maria lying in a hospital bed. She is terminally ill, on the verge of death. She looks at James and says, "I can't bear this pain anymore. Please end it." James struggles with the decision, but he cannot endure seeing her suffer any longer. In the end, he kills her to free her from her pain. Afterward, he holds her lifeless body. James carries Maria's body and places it into the back seat of his car. The opening scene we saw at the beginning, the drive towards Silent Hill, was actually the moment after he had already killed her. The entire journey, the monsters, the horrors, they were manifestations of his guilt. And that is where the story ends. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you for watching.